Generosity and service have been a huge part of my adult life and the life of my family. For 30 plus years, we have been involved with Central Night Shelter, which is a ministry of hospitality and healing to between 90 and 100 homeless men in downtown Atlanta every year from the months of November through March. At various times, my husband and I have served as director. I was volunteer coordinator when he was director, and for the last 14 years I've been director. This is all volunteer work for us. We both have regular jobs. Mark has had a long career with CDC, and I teach at Fernbank Elementary. The shelter has been a central part of our lives, and along with that, a sense of social justice. I got involved with the shelter because Mark was doing it before we were married. When I met him, he was involved with the shelter, and that's how I became involved. When we got married, he had to adopt my cats, and I had to adopt his shelter. So the cats are long since gone, by the way, and the shelter is still very much around, so I'm not sure who got the better end of that deal. But the shelter became a way for me, when I was a young mother, of being still involved with the community. And it really was kind of a lifesaver to me. In those few years when I was home, when the kids were little, it was a way for me to feel productive and involved. So yes, I guess you could say that generosity, we have been and continue to be generous with our time with the shelter, but it is we who have been enriched by the shelter itself. We have been given so much back, and you know, people are always saying to us, "Oh, you guys are so amazing what you do," and you know, but really, it is the gifts that have been given back to us that keep us coming back every year. We have seen so many examples of selflessness and courage and generosity amongst the men themselves. You know, that to us, it's just truly a gift. I grew up as an Army brat, so I grew up in the family of the Army. My mother was a nurse, and quickly, in any community we were in, became the go-to medical person. So she was always taking care of people. I have a sister who had two very serious illnesses. She was hospitalized twice for a couple of months at a time and was completely paralyzed. My father had to work. They had these enormous hospital bills. My sister was in the hospital. My mother had to be with her. They were in a different state. And extended family members took all four of the rest of us kids in. And I was the oldest. And I thought about how that example of generosity kind of shaped me as a young child, that these family members who did not have a lot of money themselves and had their own, 3 or 4 kids, took in these 4 children and made them a part of their family and ministered to them. And we were all kind of broken and, crazed with, loss and grief and not knowing what was going to happen. And I thought, I think that was my first example. And I was, the first time that happened, I was 6 years old, and the second time I was 9 years old. And so I think I learned that's just part of what you do, is you take care of people who need to be cared for. And then I was given that opportunity with my exposure to the shelter. And, Honestly, I did it because I met Mark, but once I got down here and started talking to the men and started seeing what their lives were like, it was just extraordinary to me that they could get up in the morning and put one foot in front of the other, to be living in this absolutely dire state of poverty. It was just a testament to the human spirit. And we had a couple of experiences with that, where we took people, guys from the shelter home to live with us. They were much younger, a lot more naive, and you know, we felt led to do this. It could have turned out badly. Thanks be to God, it did not. And we took a chance, and it made all the difference for us. And these people, especially one fellow in particular, he's still a part of our family and spends holidays and weekends with us, and he comes and helps at the shelter, and I cook for him, and you know, I mean, he has a life, and because we took a chance. I think I've become more of a leader, for sure. The shelter needed a mother, and I was chosen. So I know I've become more of a leader over the years. I've become more compassionate. I've tried to become less judgmental. I think I've constantly been shown, or had experiences where I was shown, that you never know what people are going through. You never know what it's like to really walk in their shoes, that you may have this idea of who a person is, but until you really understand their life and where they're coming from. And I think that's a lesson I must have needed to learn badly and over again, because I see it all the time, and I'm constantly struck by it. I've been rewarded many times over from the work that we've done at the shelter. I feel like it has allowed me to be a more authentic person. It has allowed me to open my life up to all kinds of different people with all kinds of different gifts that I would never have had the opportunity to know them, or to be with them, or to learn from them. The experience of being at the shelter, I think, has helped me to grow enormously spiritually. You know, I've come from the Catholic tradition, and I go to church on Sunday morning. I go to Mass on Sunday morning, but Sunday nights I work at the shelter, and that's where I feel like my faith comes into true, you know, work. I think the hardest thing for people is to take that first step. I think we all get weighed down and mired in the notion that one person can't make a difference, that the problems are too enormous, or too huge, that they couldn't possibly be helped by, you know, the generosity or service of one person. And I think that that's a false way of thinking. That if you take that first step, which I'm not saying is always easy to do, but if you take that first step, I think we never know the ripples that happen from what we do. Mark and I have no idea how many people have been helped by Central Night Shelter. We have no idea how many volunteers whose lives have been changed by Central Night Shelter. But we open the doors every year, and we bring the volunteers, the men come, and it's all this miracle that happens. And we may never know. We may never know the full extent to what happened. But that's not, it's up to us to take the step. And I recently had an experience, we did a fundraiser 5K race, and my friend who was at the race said, I want you to meet someone. And this guy had been working out at the gym where she goes. And she brought him over to me, and he said, 18 years ago, I stayed at Central Night Shelter. And I have spent every day since then thanking God that there was a place like that for me to go to, because it saved my life. And I've told everybody that for the last 18 years. But I never thought I would have the chance to tell you and Mark. And she just happened to mention to him about this race that she was going to. He told her the story. She bought him a race entry and brought him down there. And, you know, I think that was the Holy Spirit just telling us, okay, guys, you got to do this one more year. But I mean, this man has spent 18 years being grateful and thanking us, and we had no idea. So, and I've thought about that for the last couple of weeks since it happened, about that kind of gratitude, and how we each need to be grateful every day for all of the experiences that we have, for all of the things that help get us through the day. Because the culmination of that amount of gratitude is just an extraordinary thing. You know, I think time, talent, and treasure is something a lot of churches talk about. You know, and I think it's such an individual thing. It's different for everyone. And really that's a question that each of us needs to just ask ourselves, and it means different things to different people. You know, treasure means different things to, you know, a homeless person who has nothing, but I've seen them give up their lunch when they don't know where their next meal is coming from, and that is better than, you know, a $10,000 donation from someone who has millions. So you know, I think it's a very individual question. People should give what they can give. You know, give of your talent. You know, if you don't have treasure, give of your treasure. If you don't feel like you have any talents to give, you know, give of your time whenever you can. Give of all three if you can. But you know, I don't think it's a box or that you check off of, you know, okay, I've done my 10%, I've done the, you know, it's you do what you can, and there is no wrong answer. I have had points in my life and in my work with the shelter where I have thought it was enough, more than enough. I remember one particular time quite vividly when we had just had a lot going on in our personal lives. The kids were young, volunteers were hard to come by. I was scrambling every night trying to get, you know, people to come down and spend the night, and I'm like, and I felt completely overwhelmed. And I remember coming home and saying to Mark, of course I hadn't shared any of this with Mark ahead of time, this struggle I was feeling, I just like hit him over the head with it and said, okay, enough. Normal people do not live like this. This is enough. We need to have a normal life. And he was like, whoa, whoa, back up, what's going on? And I explained and all of that. And he's like, okay, I had no idea, let's just, take a breath. I can help you. We'll, we can talk about this, we'll get through it. And the next day, 4 new churches called to volunteer. So, I don't know how much is enough. I just keep putting one foot in front of the other and hope that I measure up somehow. It's a question that each of us has to answer individually. And I think, at times you do feel overwhelmed and you just have to take a step back and, ask for help from people who can give it and move on from there. I've always said that I thought some of the best volunteers are college kids, high school and college kids. I'm not really sure why that is. I think it's probably a combination of things. I think they come with, maybe their hearts are a little bit more open. They're not so judgmental. But it's a wonderful thing to be around when we've got college kids volunteering or high school kids volunteering, and there just seems to be an enthusiasm and a spirit and a willingness to engage the men and talk and play games, and it's just it's a wonderful thing. And for the men, it's fabulous because they spend their days walking the streets, being avoided by people. And so to be in the shelter and to be embraced by young, enthusiastic people who want to talk to them and want to engage them, it's a wonderful thing. So I'm really encouraged by what I see with the next generation that works at the shelter. I think the key is to get them down there, is to get them, or involved in whatever it may be, is to engage young people in service. I know for our own children it's been an extraordinary, life-changing thing, a life-directing experience. I think having grown up working down at the shelter, they felt like they could talk to all different kinds of people. Many of our volunteers are, doctors, lawyers, CEOs, whatever. So they were engaged with them as well as with, the guests themselves. I think it took an element of fear out of their lives. They just were more open to people and experiences. I remember our daughter telling me when she was in nursing school that many of her peers, the thing that they were nervous about in starting their clinical rotations was actually engaging with the patient. And she's like, Mom, I have no fear of that whatsoever. So, and a lot of that was from the shelter experience. I remember our son Ryan, when he was at Georgia Tech and started college, and telling me that, how when you go to college and you're meeting new people, all kinds of new people for the first time, and kind of telling them your life story and your background. And I remember him calling me up and saying, Mom, it's not exactly, people don't exactly think it's normal that you grew up in a shelter. Yes, it was different. But I think it helped shape their lives in a very positive way. I think Jessie, she has a career that she does working as a surgical trauma nurse, at Grady Hospital, which is not an easy job, but she feels called to be there, and I think is successful at it because of her experiences at the shelter. I think when I think back about the journey of the last 30 plus years with Central Night Shelter, I think it's been an extraordinary journey, and I wouldn't have traded a minute of it. It's changed my life and the life of my family. I remember when Ryan and Jesse were very young, and I remember Ryan bringing Jesse in tow and saying very thoughtfully to Mark and me, when you and Daddy retire, are me and Jesse going to have to take over the shelter? And I felt two things simultaneously. One, I felt like, yes, we've given them a sense of social justice. And then at the same time I went, oh my God, we've put this onus of responsibility on these young children. But I think it's been a wonderful thing. I think it's been a great thing. And in fact, they are still very much involved with the shelter. And you know, I'm a runner, and sometimes I run in downtown Atlanta, and my running partner always calls me the mayor of Atlanta, because wherever we go, it doesn't matter where we're running, we always see guys who know me. And I love that. I love that, that I have friends on the street, that, you know, it makes me feel like I've done something with my life. It makes me feel like I have been a part of something much bigger than myself. And I'm honored and proud to have been a part of that.